All right, I'm excited to introduce Dan O'Leary. He is the Senior Director of Partnerships at Box, longtime Facebook MetaMate, and he has been building SaaS partnerships and driving innovation at some really great companies for a while now. So welcome to the podcast, Dan.
Thank you so much, Scott. Great to see you again, Scott, being one of the only other people at work that wore sandals other than me, which was always great, but great to see you and everyone today. Dan, yeah, as mentioned, other than working at Box, Scott and I had a chance to build at the time what was called Facebook at Work, now Workplace, now maybe something different. But yeah, spent a lot of time in my career focusing on technology, partnerships, customer success, cool tech, and yeah, had a chance to do it with Scott, and I'm super excited to spend some time with you today and share more about it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, cool. I love the idea of rehashing a little bit of our prior history together at Meta, building a product in a consumer company that was intended for work. You're working for one of the most popular, best, coolest, smartest, enterprise-focused businesses. So I mean, why don't we start there? Why don't we talk a little bit about what it was like starting to build Meta Workplace? I guess we actually changed the company name post while we were there, so I still have a hard time remembering it. What do you look back and think about when you think about workplace?
Yeah, or at the time it was called Facebook at Work. I had a bunch of great anecdotes, but one of my favorite is meeting with the CIO very early on when the product was still in stealth, and he goes, guys, spent the last 5 years trying to get my employees off Facebook at Work, and here you are trying to bring it in. I was like, okay, maybe we need to rename this thing. Better call the brand too. But it was super interesting. You joined before I did, Scott, and I had a chance to join the journey pretty early on when, before we had signed up any paying customers, I think before we had launched, taken out of stealth. And at the time, I think Facebook probably had 1 billion users, just 1 billion, now over 3 billion. And there's just this incredible experiment to say, what if people came into the enterprise and knew how to use enterprise software because they had been trained fully on the consumer side? The average person has spent an hour a day on Facebook. They already know how these buttons work. They know what to do. What if we just brought that same technology in and helped them communicate and collaborate and work really well? And yeah, that experiment has played out as you will all hear today. And it was super fascinating to see not just what it was like to build enterprise software at a consumer company where no one really knew how to spell SaaS or SSO or IDP or SOC 2, things that I know what they mean, and they mean a lot to our buyers and people I work with today. But at a company that wasn't used to doing that, it was focused on Farmville and cow clicking games. So it was a totally new thing. So I remember, it's super interesting. But it really was fascinating, I think, most importantly, to understand how organizations work and communicate, and getting a front row seat to some of the best companies and really understanding what makes them tick. That was one of my lasting takeaways from that experience.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think a lot about was just how we went from a small, tiny, essentially non-existent organization or team to actually being, hundreds of people building a product. And I think a lot of that came as a result of products like Slack and, other tools that were coming out at the time. Teams eventually came obviously before, but I think one of the key takeaways for me was we didn't have as much of a villain. We just had an old way of doing things and some legacy enterprise SaaS tools. And then when Slack came along, it was this boogeyman that we were all afraid of, but we knew that we had to scale up, otherwise we're going to get beat. And I think that happens a lot with all these SaaS tools, right?
Oh yeah, big time. Well, and especially it's the competition where you wake up every day and you're like, oh, Facebook is competing with Microsoft. It's well, that's not uncommon in the consumer world, but all of a sudden, now it's in the enterprise world, and it's, Yammer and Teams versus Workplace and Work Chat. And you start to look at these partnerships as well as the competition very differently, when I think we kind of expected 1 billion people would just kind of sign up for Facebook at Work because they already were familiar with it. And actually that didn't happen. It's actually a lot harder to drive change in the way people collaborate and communicate at scale, and a lot harder than just signing up for an account to share photos with your friends, come to find out. A lot harder than anticipated.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think even going back to your point about the CIO saying it's hard to get people off Facebook, ironically, getting them to work at and on a Facebook product in the workplace also had some, it was I don't want to do that. I don't mind scrolling through silliness, but I don't want to become friends. That was another thing that was actually really interesting about Facebook is my coworkers would add me on Facebook, and we kind of I had just met them in a meeting and I probably didn't ever see them again. So lots of different enterprise social stuff. I don't know. Do you have like how many of your teammates are your friends on Facebook?
Yeah, but personally, well, for me, it's a little different. I was like, since I've been at Box, I've been in 3 or 4 people's weddings, like live on the same street as some of my dear friends. So I've experienced that firsthand, but you're right. Like, yeah, sometimes you just want to go to work, you want to connect maybe over an affinity group or community, but you're like, I'm not ready to like find out everything about these people and their dogs and their baking habits. I just, I'm happy to know them as an acquaintance. And that, like, a lot of those modalities, like, just didn't necessarily translate as expected, but others did. And I think I have so many good stories of people who were able to make connections, build community, find job opportunities, like using the technology in ways that like we had certainly never anticipated. And you couldn't have, because each company, each organization, each team, each leader just had a slightly different way of working and communicating. And like, it was super fascinating to see all the different permutations as that like spanned out across the globe. Yeah.
I think another interesting thing that, I always think about is like products like, Box or Zeit in my case, but there's so many different tools that came about because somebody was at work and they were frustrated with how their current workflow was, developing. And I think about like, even at Facebook, it's like, how are we communicating? We actually, like, we started off by making like a Facebook group, and it was like a crazy experience. And then you'd have like hundreds of Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's a sort of like product market fit pull thing. So anyway, that brings you back to why you're here, which is a couple different questions I have to start with. When I got to know you, you had just been at Box for a few years. Was it 3, 4, something like that?
Yeah. Good tour duty, 4 years. That was it. I'm back. So, it's great.
Yeah. So I would love to know, like, what's it like being one of those, what do they call it?
Boomerangs. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that like? Is it like you come home, you go back to work? Like, how does that feel?
Oh yeah, it's like marrying the same person twice, I suppose. But so you're getting into, but also like what's the proverb about like the stream is never the same, or like the river's never the same on 2 days. Like things are always changing in business. So the company I returned to was fundamentally different than the one I left. And it's really important, I think, for anyone that's listening to this. You don't really go back to anything. You just go forward with maybe the same employee ID, or in my case, email, and I returned to like spam that I'd forgotten I signed up for from VMware or something. Like, oh gosh, got to delete that out. It was great because you come back in with an established network and some things about the product and company, but at the same time, you're a different person. The market's different. The opportunity is different. And the opportunity I saw is now the one we're realizing is that the opportunity for partners at Box, it was underdeveloped, and we really needed people that were incredibly passionate about how to scale our business with and through partners that I think Meta is like world class at. So it was a really great opportunity for me to leverage that experience and now start to take a lot of the things that you and I worked on and now scaling it in a different type of company focused on content and AI. We're in similar worlds here, but like very fundamentally different than returning to something. You're just going forward in like a more familiar way. I don't know. Like a reboot, like J.J. Abrams would be happy with the way Boomerangs work, I think,
Did you feel like you at all had to like, I don't know, like, did you have to like prove yourself on day one because you had been there, you left, maybe people felt like you had abandoned them and you wanted to show how amazing you are? Like you bring a strong passion game.
Punches and find the biggest guy, take him out.
Yeah, actually, exactly. Did you go after Aaron? Like, what was that like?
It was surprising. I actually felt very welcomed. They had made stickers of me and handed them out to some people, and those still exist somewhere. And it was like fascinating to start to understand like what was the same, what was different. And then my role was different. I had left leading parts of our technical services team working in solution architecture, and I returned doing a growth and strategy and partnerships role. So just like fundamentally different role based on learning how to scale these businesses up and build better partnerships. So it was also like I was in different rooms working with different people. I think one of my biggest observations, having spent years focused on Box, the product, putting many of our largest customers on Box, like GE is like probably one of my favorite projects. Now, what I've been focused on is more Box, the company. And it's a lot harder to fix a company than it is a product, or to build things with people and, align roadmaps and teams and do internal partnerships. Substantially harder than working on a client project or a go live, even when it's for hundreds of thousands of people. And it's just been a continued area of humility and growth for me over the past few years.
You've used the word a bunch of times, I think, in the context of Facebook and partnerships, box partnerships. I feel like when I came from a company called Dyn to Parse to Facebook, and I typically really only thought about things in terms of customers, not so much partners. Like it seems like you've made, and I think Facebook and our bosses at Facebook often talked about partnerships. It's clearly a different thing, right? Customer versus partnership. How do you view it? Like what's the big difference for you? Like obviously you're
Yeah.
spending a lot of time there.
Yeah. So to me, a partner is just a customer in disguise. Like, hey, I
Okay.
gotcha. Because that partner represents many of your customers and prospects. They are the ones that are probably in that office every day. They've sold Salesforce, ServiceNow, Slack. Those are just the S's. They understand the lines of businesses. They understand how people work. And those partners are so key in helping customers get value from the tools and services and solutions you build. So like, I think early on when I was working in professional services and then throughout my career, I've always seen the value of partners who can help, build in and around your product, make your customers super happy and successful. And the more they do that, the more their business grows and the more value you create in that partnership. Those folks work when you don't. You're on the beach, they're out selling for you, they're out delivering for you. And when you have a mindset that is based on both customer success and I think partner success, really great things can happen. And I think a lot of revenue leaders may think that partnerships are a team. They're not. Partnerships are a strategy, and they're a strategy to grow. And it's really a strategy not just about growing your business, but growing the success of your customers by aligning them and working with the right partners.
This kind of like focus on the ensuring customer success, partner success. What was that like? I mean, did you have a sense for that before Box? Like, I think I'm trying to remember your college, your career path. Like, where did you go right after college?
Yeah, I went to work at a company called Laserfish, which is still around and still exists. And I had a chance to work with partners there, and they only worked and fulfilled with partners. I'm like, don't let the lack of gray hair fool you. I keep it tight. But like, this was in the early 2000s, and we were physically like shipping software. Like, you'd go down to the storeroom and you'd put stuff in a box and you'd shrink wrap it, you'd mail it to a customer, you'd mail it to a partner. And when you understand that like this is just a path to market, the same way, let's say some companies will only buy from a vendor direct, some are going to buy through a marketplace, maybe buy through CDW, maybe they'll buy through some type of partner, and others will only buy through a partner. They only work with those types of companies. To me, it's just like a different path to market than maybe the traditional SaaS playbook has had, where partnerships, especially I think historically, maybe they weren't as valuable, or like outside of tech partnerships, there's a difference between writing code. But if you want to get on a sales call and sell something or deploy something together, a lot of the value prop of software as a service was that things were easy. Like back to workplace, you don't need training on it. We've already trained you. A billion people already know how to use this product. So what's the role then of a partner in that world? And I think that is, especially now with AI just like roaring, it's really something that's going to have to be redefined again, just as much as the playbook now is different than the one probably 5 years ago.
Yeah. Do you think that, I think like a great example of this dynamic of it should be self-serve, and in reality, it's not. Like, you think about Scott or Dan setting up these demo accounts for our customers at Workplace.
Oh yeah.
And like pre-filling like every imaginable piece of CRM content, like making 100 groups, adding descriptions and banners and headlines and all these kind of things, which is actually really cool. And I think it was a great strategy that we developed and practiced well before anything was automated. And I think even with the AI, it's like we're also excited about the direction it's going, but we still have a ways. Like I watch a lot of Aaron's tweets and video examples about what AI can do. And he's still, to me, he's like so far ahead of everyone else, right?
Oh yeah.
He's kind of like beast mode in that category for sure.
Yeah, and I think there's like those of us who are practitioners, the rate of change is just so insane. Like outside of our companies, it's so hard to stay on the cutting edge. And I think that's where I'm like, hey, Slalom has like 6,000 people who are AI certified. Deloitte has like 10 times as many. When we're trying to drive outcomes for a customer around data and AI, like I'm an expert on content. I'm an expert on content and AI. I'm not an expert on everything related to AI. I just can't be. No one can be. And it's changing so quickly. So I think in this AI-driven world, the power of partnerships is going to become even more pronounced, because a lot of the things you need to make a customer successful can only come when you have that like deep level of knowledge and expertise and sophistication that just vendors don't. I wish everyone could, but no, not gonna happen, guys. You're gonna need someone who understands you.
Yeah, and more often than not, you need somebody on your team. You need a manager, leader, etc. You've gotten to work with some great leaders across, Box, Workplace, etc. What are some of the things that you've really, I don't know, noticed or honed in on that create great teams? Because obviously, like terrible teams, bad teams, I've played on a few of them in sports. I've tried to avoid them professionally. My beer league hockey team is both terrible and fun. So, like,
Yeah, that's good.
do
Well, that's the secret, though, is like if you guys have fun together, even if you're terrible, you're still gonna have a good time. So I think there's part of it is enjoying the journey. I think one of the things, like especially in our tenure together, everyone was grinding so hard. We didn't always take time to stop and smell the roses and enjoy it. And in hindsight, it's like really obvious that we were doing amazing work with the greatest people and like moving the needle every day. But like when you're in the thick of it, maybe that's not always the case. Either way, I think in partnerships, in SaaS, and in life, like really it all comes back to communication. And maybe that's why, like I've been married for a while, you too, Scott. It really is how you communicate effectively, understanding people's objectives, working out loud, something we really advocated for with Workplace is really key. And really, I think what you find is that the best teams and really the best leaders, they communicate well, they communicate often, they communicate with clarity and transparency, and most importantly, authenticity. And maybe that was like one of my biggest like learnings from Workplace was the best leaders weren't necessarily the ones who had the biggest personas. They were the folks who were the most authentic in their communications. And a good example of that was like, what's his name? Tony from AirAsia, the CEO of AirAsia, going live while we were walking around campus on a tour, and he whips out his phone and he starts going live in Workplace to like thousands of people at AirAsia. And like I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if you're supposed to be doing this here. So I'm like, one day I'm like absolutely panicking. The other, he's like getting this immediate reaction from all of his airline teams all over the world. And he was like a great example of an authentic and transparent communicator. And, I think that to me was like just a good example of it, but it all goes back to communication.
Yeah, I think that's such a great way to distill it. I think about some of the all hands we had at Facebook together where, you'd be like sipping on your hot chocolate, sitting outside, excited. And Zuck would come up and be like, hey, everybody, we're going to change the direction completely away from this to this. And then like 5 of his execs would go, yep, changing direction. And it was like, that's what it was. And that's what it's going to be from every single leader across the org for the next year, even if it sometimes felt like you were, little soccer players chasing the ball instead of playing strategically. Like I felt like that sometimes, but the message, the authenticity, and that consistency was pretty key there.
Oh, totally. Well, and then for organizations, I think that are like us, everyone is going through a lot of change right now. Just the external world is changing so fast. The speed that you communicate and collaborate is really the speed that you can drive success within your organization. So like if you're stuck on analog processes or collaboration or sharing or comms, that weak link, like now becomes as fast as you can go. And if you don't remove those things, you're never going to be able to keep up with the increasing demands of our customers and in the market. Just, the speed you communicate and collaborate like really drives like a lot of success.
So speaking of keeping up, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like there's a lot of cutting edge stuff going on. I constantly feel like it's actually pretty hard to keep up with the models, the features, these SaaS tools that are going from like 0 to 2 million ARR, 100 million ARR. But I think one of the things that really stood out to me, so I actually attended Dan and Box's BoxWorks event.
Yes, it worked. And because you were there, Scott, it was working. That was great.
Yes. But man, I think the thing that really was fascinating to me was how quickly this company took the ideas of, hey, AI is available. It can consolidate, simplify, streamline, make workflows easier. And they brought it into their product in a way that I didn't feel like was overwhelming. And I think that's one of the biggest things right now is, as a practitioner, as somebody who's obsessed in like reading about and trying AI, there's so much, but then for your customers, you need to make it simple and useful, right? I think that seems to be the biggest thing in SaaS.
Oh, big time. And the same way we saw this at Workplace, like, in order to be successful, you had to log in, you had to update your profile photo, you had to follow a couple coworkers. We came up with some simple steps that would get someone up and running and in a level of comfort. Asking people to change the way they work is already like really scary for most people. Like, change is hard, and if you don't believe it's hard, to go try to change something in your own life and report back. Let me know how that goes. Try to change the diet soda you drink. Let me know how that goes for you.
There's no way I'm going to touch that. Like I don't know about you, but like I actually, so I was in New York over the weekend with my 12-year-old. Like I took her on a trip like for her birthday.
Wow. Good for you. Amazing.
And the only place that I could find a Diet Dr. Pepper was in the Met cafeteria. Like I literally looked everywhere, and the one place was like the most sophisticated place in the world.
Where you get it. See, no accident there, folks. Diet Dr. Pepper drinkers go to the Met. See, and that's why hard change is hard, and changing the way you work is hard. I think when we're thinking about how we're going to bring AI to the masses, it's all about meeting them where they're at. So like, no one cares about AI. They care about what it can do for them. They care about how much faster they can make a decision or summarize a document or secure a piece of content or take, a lot of what we're doing is like extraction of content. So you take a giant contract or legal pleading or hundreds of pages, thousands of pages of documents, and you need to just extract the key terms and information. And by the way, you need to be like 100% accurate. You get a date wrong, you get a clause wrong, like that has huge implications. So making those buttons look pretty and making the modals easy and, making sure that it's not a huge change in how people work so that they can enjoy their Diet Dr. Pepper is really key. And just continuing to iterate on that user feedback all the time. And yeah, I don't know, like ideally you make it fun to use too. Or like, I think for me, it's when that aha moment kicks in for somebody when they're like, oh my God, this would have taken me 2 hours and I did it in 10 minutes. You're like, yes. And you can have that over and over and over. And let me show you how. So it's just helping people, I think, get comfortable and getting to that aha moment. So then they want to do more and invest and work a little more. And then AI can actually become valuable for them. But like no one cares if you're not bringing something they care about.
Yeah, absolutely right. The aha moment is key. I frequently text my little sister like a screenshot of a prompt that I used, and it'll be like, hey, go to this web page and pull out the recipe so that I don't have to deal with like the 18-page story. And she's like, oh, that's
a whole life story. Yeah.
But I think like, my little sister's this way. My wife, she's a school counselor at a middle school. Her preferred and favorite thing right now is when she's communicating with, she speaks Spanish really well, but she's not so comfortable to do it like over email. Mm-hmm. And it's as simple as help me format and sort of adjust this email in another language. And she's just like, she's constantly raving about it. Like, it's like this incredible thing. It is, but it seems so simplistic to me. But like, I think most people just need one core thing to come back to.
Yeah, translation, interestingly enough, that is proven to be the #1 stickiest use case for general like knowledge worker with Box AI. That's the one that they will come back to over and over and over. Multinational who has a distributor in Quebec. And you're like, well, that's a different language than I speak. But with AI, you can now read and understand and work with that content, and that is a use case I never even thought about because it doesn't impact me that much. And then you hear from your customers, you're like, yeah, I use this 20 times a day. You're like, wow. That is super powerful. And that's where you realize the real power isn't in the technology. It's in how that changes the way that person and that team and then their customer, their partner, whoever they're collaborating with interact. And I think that's something that like maybe we got wrong with Workplace is we thought the technology would be enough, and it's not. It's like really about the power and the productivity and like what that actually means for a person.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, at least for me personally, I think back to the obsession with customer feedback, talking to customers that I have now that I've sort of developed as CEO. I'm constantly afraid, worried, excited, like so many, sort of like this crazy sine wave throughout the day. But I'm kind of curious for you guys, like, or even for you, Dan, but how do you stay connected to the customer? And I know some of your roles are like, you're talking to partners who are selling the product, who are, and it might be a couple steps, but like, how do you stay close? How do you make sure?
Oh, yeah. Actually, this goes back to Julien, who was the head of Workplace at the time. That guy, I mean, super well. Scott, like, he was in the field on calls with customers, making it happen from the front line. It was like watching, a Roman commander on the front lines with his sword out. And it made you want to follow him because he was rushing into combat every day harder than you were. And you're like, this guy is absolutely nuts. Let's do what he's doing. And that has really rubbed off on me as I realized in order to be a good leader, I cannot sit in a room and read slides or pontificate. I need to go get in the field, get on the call with a partner, get on the call with a customer, get in the room and talk to them. So like I mean, for me, yeah, every day, multiple times a day, I'm on calls with customers and partners. And then there's a few areas like at Dreamforce, we'll do, last year, like almost 70 executive briefings. I was in a bunch of those. So you're just one after the other. And when you walk away, like you're physically and mentally tired, but you're able to get so much feedback and have so many conversations one after the other. I think it's really, really critical now more than ever, where like you can read an AI summary of a meeting on Gong or something. No, you got to get in the room, in 3 or 4 dimensions with a customer, with a partner, and talk to them and connect with them as a human being. And you'd be surprised how much better those outcomes will be. Yeah, I can't recommend it enough.
There's been a few times over the last like 6 months. One of the things that I've noticed is I have a product manager on my team. His name's Finn, and he's very much like this. This like go talk to 1 million people, ping, LinkedIn, whatever, and he's deep there. I've had other folks on my team who I'll ask a question and they will copy verbatim the ChatGPT response, and I'm like, dude, like first, at least massage it a little bit. But,
yeah, at least write in your own voice.
Yeah, but I think this is where that kind of like I can distill the customer versus I'm going to understand and talk to them is so critical and key. I think if you try to create these little barriers between you and the customer, I think Julian, I feel like occasionally we called him the missile because he was literally so focused. He was going right after the problem. He wasn't afraid of it, and I think that's like my CEO thing is. Hire the best people, make sure we have money in the bank, and then like distill the vision and, sort of be consistent about it. But he was great at all those things. I loved working with that guy.
Same. He was, I very rarely found people that I can't outwork, and he was one of them. Like he was more endurant and more resilient, and I respect that greatly. That's exactly the type of leader personally that I like to follow. Someone who I'm like, yep, they're setting an example that I'm going to always strive to have to reach myself.
So you're like, You've been married. I think you have a kiddo, 1 or 2.
2 of them. Yeah, they're young though. Scott, I got a little ways, so I'm going to the vet with them. That's for sure.
Make sure you start feeding him Diet Dr. Pepper now. So hopefully, But like the desire for excellence and the work ethic that you have, combined with wanting to build a great family, like I find it difficult. I'm not at all thoughtful about. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of this like work-life balance. I think that's sort of a misnomer that you can't actually ever get to. Julian would frequently say, I don't have work-life balance and I'm okay with that. And I think that was actually pretty authentic. How do you do it? What's your view on all that stuff?
I'm on my second sugar furball that I Scott. That's how we do it. Is, honestly, it's a prioritization exercise, and my family comes first, because at the end of the day, no matter how much I love my work and my teammates, some of my best friends, etc., it's really your family who are the ones that are most important to you. And I feel like in a partnerships role, if your most important partnerships, the ones with your family, aren't going well, like that's very telling for me. So it's not that I have OKRs with my kids. It's that I prioritize, like on the weekends, I really try not to keep my laptop locked up if I possibly can. You know what I mean? And same thing, like if it's Christmas break or something, just intentionally spending that time the same way. Yeah. If you're a customer with a partner, you intentionally give them your time and attention and focus, and do that consistently. Make them a priority. Like I don't know, and little things too. So I run a lot now. I was telling before we hopped on, I just had a half marathon yesterday. My legs are a little sore, and I run almost all of my miles. I'd say 95% of my miles are with the jogger, 1 or 2 kids at a time. It's pretty good.
Dude, that's
nice
awesome.
Upper back workout. So I ran like, I don't know, almost 700 or 800 miles last year with my kids, both of them, hours on end. It's great. Get time with dad, run to the park, have a snack. So I try to incorporate, things that I like, things that they like, and we do it together. And that's just a key part of how we work. But it's like, I love them the most, and my team knows them. My son has a badge for Box when he comes to the office. He is well known. So yeah, I try to bring them around, and other people get to know them too. So they're part of our life now.
I do find it a little bit hard to believe that you don't have family OKRs though. Like I imagine you taking your wife out and like being like, all right, I've planned an executive retreat. We're going to spend 2 days thinking about the future together.
I've definitely had them in the past. And now mine are like objective, like get the children to bed by 6:30 p.m.
Yep.
Key results, both children asleep by 7, you know what I mean? So, but like a big part of it is just like learning how to adapt your life. And at this season in our lives in particular, mine are very young. And I don't know, something I think about is they're not going to want to hang out with me forever. Dad's not going to be the coolest forever. And, now is the time to check in. I'll also say it is humbling to be an engaged parent. And it actually, I think, makes me a lot better every day at what I do, because I just start from a level of just like sheer humility. Like, I've been punched in the face by this kid today. Like, nothing to worry. What are you going to do to me? Like, I've had my coworkers, that are, 18 months and 4, like poop on the floor and smack me today. It's not going to phase me, guys. So that's been a big part of it. And then also I'll say, I don't know if you felt the same way, Scott, that gentle parenting really helps me in tough meetings where I'm like, what I want to say is one thing, but what I'm going to say is like, okay, honey, let's, like I've gotten a lot of practice where I think I used to be a lot like, just like a lot more intense, maybe a lot more like, I don't know, aggressive. I've had to soften it a little bit because I have small children, and then I show up at work with, ideally that same humility and like gentle management style. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it works.
Well, they also really help you see how badly you communicate at all times. It's like, dude, I told you that 2 minutes ago. And then like my wife will be with me and she'll be like, no, you didn't. And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, shoot. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's something I think about often, is that like, especially when I communicate to my team, my partners, customers, I'm like, look, I've told you this 6 times. You may just now be starting to get it. But if my own crew, like my own critters, like they rely on me for everything and they don't listen. So why would I expect my partner to listen if I told them once? So it actually has, I think, helped me understand that I need to communicate not just more clarity, but like, through different modalities or different frequencies. Like maybe it's not just a Slack, maybe it's a Slack and an email, maybe it's a Slack and an email and a walk around the block, but like, they're there, honey, let's get down on your level and talk. So it really has made me conscious that I am not only a bad communicator, but like no one listens to me at all.
Yes. I think that's the other key takeaway of all leadership roles or parental roles is nobody's listening. So you just have to keep trying.
Yep. Yeah. And keep making it interesting to them. That's a big part. It's like having built a communications platform, you really see this in action and at scale. This is no joke.
Well, Dan, so I have one final question for you so that you can, get back to running and the family and building an incredible future of the workplace. But there are a lot of things. We've talked about a couple of them, AI, all these kinds of things. But like, what are you really excited about personally, professionally over the next couple of years? There's so much going on. Where's your head at?
Oh, Scott, I hope that one day I can join you having some chickens so that I can eat, like a dozen eggs a day like Gaston. But if not,
dude, there's no eggs right now. It's in the middle of the winter. It's terrible. I have to buy them from Costco.
Anyway. Oh, no. Especially not at these egg prices, Scott. So no, I think like, well, yeah, part of it is just, as you've done, I think you've set a great example. I love coming on the pod and connecting and hearing other people's stories. It's continuing to just like share and enjoy the time. I think I really want to be a more resilient leader and like enjoy the journey a little bit. And then when I look back at what I've accomplished, what I want to do is help companies and people, my teams, my partners really achieve their potential. I think I'm starting to define a lot of my success now based on the success of others, my customers, my partners, et cetera, and making that the goal rather than just, a number or a dashboard or something. I think because that's never going to end. That's going to be an area of continuous improvement. I don't know. At some point I want to like buy a power washing business or something. Like I really enjoy enterprise software, but man, some days do I just want to go like paint rain gutters in the neighborhood or buy a wood chipper. So hopefully when I'm ready to be put out to pasture, I'll be stump grinding or doing something pretty dirty with my hands. That's the long-term play.
Dude, you chose some of the most hardcore ones: stump grinding, wood chipping, paint. Oh my gosh! Yeah. Some of my favorite things to do are build stuff. My backyard. I just built this massive play structure for my kids slowly over many weeks, and I suck at everything, but it's been fun to do. All right, man. Well, hey, it's so great to have you, and thanks for spending some time with us.
No, thank you, Scott, and team. Let's connect and let's keep the conversation ongoing.